Welcome back to the EV Geek podcast. I am your host, Joel, and on today's episode, we will be learning all about the Chevy Bolt with special guest Sebastian Clark. Let's get started. This podcast is sponsored by Evolve Auto. Evolve Auto is one of the South's exclusive EV dealerships, specializing in pre-owned Teslas. Evolve Auto ships to all 48 contiguous states and offers superb customer service and financing. They also offer extended warranty options for all vehicles. Check out their entire inventory at evolveauto.com. Evolve Auto, connecting smart people with smart cars. All right, today we are joined by Sebastian Clark, who is a Chevy Bolt owner. Welcome, Sebastian. How are you doing today?
Doing all right.
All right, so tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
So I bought my Bolt in June, and it's worked great for me. I'm a techie person, so it's a techie car. It's my second kind of electric vehicle. My first one, I had a Chevy Bolt back in, 2019 or 2020 that I had that. And so that's kind of dipped my toes in. And then I bought my Bolt in June to kind of get full in there. But it's been a great car. I love it.
So you said your first one was a Volt?
Yes.
So what's the difference between the Volt and the Bolt besides the letters?
So the Volt was a plug-in hybrid. It would go, I had the first gen Volt, so it would go maybe 40 miles-ish on a charge. And then after that, it could kick the gas engine on, which it only worked as a generator on the first gen Volt. It didn't actually drive the wheels.
Gotcha. So, why make the switch? Why switch from the Volt to the Bolt? What made that decision for you?
Well, there was actually a couple cars in between there, but no, the Bolt got cheap. So when I started looking at it again, and my wife's car was a little too small for rear-facing car seat and everything, and so then I found a Bolt local that was pretty cheap, and went and test drove it, loved it, brought it home.
All right. So tell me the specs. So you have what type of Volt do you have? What are the specs of it and things like that?
So I've got a 2019 Bolt Premier. So Premier is the top trim level. It has a 60 kilowatt hour battery. It's a little shaky there. So when it was new, it had a 60 kilowatt hour battery. But the 2017 to 2019 Bolts all were eligible for a battery replacement due to a recall. And so depending on when the battery was installed, they either got a 64 or a 66 kilowatt hour battery as part of that. I believe mine's the 60 is the label on the battery. I just haven't gotten on the ground and looked at it.
You need to get up under there and see what it says. So did you do your battery replacement before you owned it, or was it done after you had bought and you had to take it in?
So it was already done when I bought the car.
Gotcha. Now, what did they give you any kind of warranty on that battery that they told you about when they replaced it or anything?
Yeah, so when they replaced the battery, it resets the EV warranty, which was 8 years, 100,000 miles. So mine's until like 132,000 miles, and then 8 years from whatever it was replaced, which I don't remember off the top of my head.
Gotcha. All right. So you said it was cheap. So why the Bolt over all the other EVs that are out there? Was price the only reason?
I mean, I kind of have always liked it. Other than the aforementioned battery recall, from everything I've heard, they're bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was looking kind of local, when I bought my car, Model 3s hadn't quite fallen in price, any of that. So it was really like the Bolt or the Leaf were your $20,000 EVs.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
We live somewhere warm, so the Leaf is immediately out of the running.
So yeah, so there are two different. I don't know if you said it's not. There are two different Bolts. Which one do you have? I know there's two models. Which one do you have?
So since mine is a Gen 1 Bolt, so it's just the EV. They added the EUV in 2022, which really the only difference size-wise is in the back seat. Okay. They have the exact same cargo space, and then the front is the same room-wise.
Gotcha. So spec-wise, it's different. It's just a little bit longer in the back seat.
Right. They have the exact same powertrain, same batteries, same everything else.
Gotcha. All right. Tell us what it's like to drive this thing. So daily driving, which is probably you use a lot for because of its range. Tell me what it's like driving this thing daily to and from work, around town. What's it like?
It's great. It's got plenty. It's not, the fastest car in the world, but it's got way more. It's still got that instant torque. So when you need to get overtake someone. I do a lot of interstate driving for my to get to and from work. So I drive about 60 miles every day. And I mean, it soaks up the miles. The seats are comfortable. In the Premier, it's got all the niceties. So it's got heated seats, heated steering wheel, which is really nice, in the winter, especially when you're trying to conserve range and you're maybe not having the heat blast on you.
Yep.
Not that I need to for my 60-mile commute, but when you're using less electric and you see the watt hour per mile go up and you're like, ooh,
Yep.
it's like a little game. Otherwise, it drives very much like just the EV. And then it's, super easy. A couple times my wife has driven it. She drives a gas car. And so she drives it and she just remarks, she's like, oh, it's just smoother. It's tuned. It's not tuned to be like a spaceship or anything. It's kind of tuned to mimic some of that gas car quality, but you still get the benefits of EV.
Gotcha. And I know you have a little one, so how is that with the size, getting a car seat in and out, things like that? Is that difficult, or do you have plenty of room to do that?
So it's amazing. The Bolt is a little bit smaller than my wife's old car. We could barely fit the rear-facing seat in her old car. Like basically, you couldn't sit in the seat in front of it. But in the Bolt, I can put that front seat all the way back, and there's still plenty of room.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I
It's
didn't know
just,
they
I
were.
guess, from removing the transmission tunnel, removing kind of space for, being able to lower that floor
Yep.
and stick the wheels as far out apart. It just, really helps with the interior space.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, are you the kind of person that plugs in every night, or do you go a couple days? I know you said you don't have a 60-mile commute, so what are you the kind of person that does the
So I
charging?
usually plug in every night, mainly for just kind of that on the Bolt. When you plug it in, it does more battery maintenance. It'll if it decides it needs to kick the air conditioning on to cool the battery, or heat or run the heat to heat it. It does it more frequently if it's plugged in versus not. It also does some stuff like when it's not plugged in, it only checks the 12-volt battery level maybe once every 3 days, I believe. But when it's actually plugged in, it's every 6 hours. And so it's just some little stuff like that. So I generally just plug it in. I only set the charge level to about 80% usually. So I might plug it in and it might only charge for like 2 hours, but then it's just plugged in.
Gotcha. So is the same standard on bolts as it is to Teslas? You charge 80%. That's basically it, unless you got to go a longer
Yeah,
distance.
that's the general recommendation.
Gotcha. All right. Now let's talk about long distance traveling. So have you attempted it in a Bolt? I mean, what's it like? I mean, I know charging is not fun here in Arkansas where we live, but what is it like going long trips? I know you've taken some.
So it's not too bad. That's where the Bolt's kind of weakness comes in, though,
Mm-hmm.
is the DC fast charging it's not great.
Mm-hmm.
At best, you have a 55 kilowatt peak, which is pretty low, especially by modern standards. Now, when we remember when the car came out in 2017, that was honestly not
Mm-hmm.
terrible, but it's one of those things. It's GM probably could have upped that over the years instead of just leaving it the same. But it's not too bad though. Like we have a little one, so when we stop, we're not stopping for 5 minutes anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But the that makes it not too bad, but it does kind of stink. It also doesn't have any way to do preconditioning on the battery.
Okay.
So in the winter, you plug in and then you're getting 30 kilowatt instead of
Ooh,
50. And it's like when you're already low, getting lower hurts.
gotcha. So what kind of trips have you taken in that thing? So kind of give us an idea where you've gone and where you can't go.
So we've gone up to Kansas in it to visit some family, and it was fine, other than Francis energy chargers, but that's not the car's
Oh yeah,
fault.
that's a whole nother podcast.
Um, oh yeah. And then we've taken it up to Bentonville a couple times, and taken it to Memphis, and it's not been any real big issue other than just you're not stopping for 10, 15 minutes. You're stopping for 30 minutes or more.
Gotcha. So what are you pulling when you pull into those things usually? I mean, what's the max you're going to get, and what's the line look like? Does it go up real fast and then down, or does it kind of peak and hold it and then go down? What's that charging kind of curve look like?
So it kind of, when you plug in super low, because pack voltage drops, you don't get that 50 kilowatt. You get probably, if I remember right, it's in the 40s. It usually kind of stabilizes around 20 to 30%, and then you'll hit your 55. And if I'm remembering correctly, it holds it till about around 50%,
Okay,
and then it just gradually tapers from there.
gotcha. Tapers in there. Gotcha. So so you came to my next question, which is about supercharging. So let's kind of talk about location wise where you have to travel. Have you ever traveled where you couldn't find one, or did you pretty much be able to find one where you needed to go?
So in the trips we've done, it's not been too bad. On 40, there's an EA station in Clarksville, and then the other direction there's one in Forest City. So that's not too terrible. Like when we went to Bentonville, we stopped at the one in Clarksville, and then I believe once we got up there, we stopped in Rogers and charged, and then same thing on the way home. And then when we've gone to Memphis, I can get to Forest City at about 50%, and so we'll stop. Usually we'll end up going and then coming back and stopping in Forest City. So it's not been too bad for any of the trips I've done, but I always check on a better route planner, just map it out, make sure that, okay, I can actually make it here.
Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, Arkansas is not the leader in supercharging. So, I mean, if you want to go, interstate wise, you're pretty good. But if you decide you're going to take a back road somewhere, it's going to be a little difficult wanting to charge. And pretty much Arkansas, you got to take interstates to go anywhere. All right. So you talked a little bit about this with the battery. What other kinds of maintenance have you had to do on this vehicle in the time that you've owned it?
Nothing else major, which I didn't even do the battery. That was
Uh-huh.
before I bought it. But otherwise, all I've done there, I put tires on it about 50,000 miles and then wiper fluid.
Gotcha. So what do tires for a car run like that? Because I know what they run for a Tesla. What are they running for a smaller car like that?
So if you buy what comes on it from the factory, which are Michelin, Energy Saver, All Seasons, they're about 250
Oh,
a
that's not
tire.
bad.
But I didn't buy
Huh?
those. I actually bought a Pirelli. I don't remember what it was, but it was a Sam's Club. They were like 175 a
Okay.
tire, and I haven't noticed any range hit or anything from that.
Gotcha. So yeah. I remember when I placed mine, I didn't go with the energy, the sound saving tires. I went with the other ones, and I didn't know much either. When
The
you
only
have to
downside,
get maintenance done, what is that like dealing with a local dealership or having to take it in? I mean, I'm sure you've had to take it in, or maybe you haven't. What is that like?
so I actually haven't had to take my car anywhere. When I did the tires, I got them done at Sam's Club, so they didn't
So
care.
no
They just
recalls,
threw
no
it off a
anything
left
like that on
level.
that?
Not since I bought it.
Wow, you've been lucky. So no wipers yet, no brakes.
No, I did my own wipers, and the brakes are good.
Gotcha.
I'll get down and check them, and pads still have plenty of meat on them. So
That's good. All right. So one last thing before we finish up, I told you we keep these things kind of short. Anything else you want to tell us about this electric vehicle and kind of your ownership years to it? You just want to share with everyone.
yeah, so I've had it about a year, and honestly, I kind of believe for the money, it's hard to beat. Model 3s keep getting cheaper, and a Model 3 is probably a better
Mm-hmm.
car. But really, these things go for, I paid probably around 20 grand a year ago. Now I go and look, you can find the Premiers like I have for 15,000,
That's
and we're
low.
still talking like 30,000 miles.
Yeah, that's low.
You know,
So,
barely has any miles on it.
mm-hmm. So major question is, it's a couple years from now. It's time for you to buy another a car. What are you looking at? It doesn't have to be EV wise. If you had to say, okay, 2 years from now, I'm going to have to buy another car. What are you looking at?
I don't see me going away from an EV at this point, just because once you've done it,
That is true.
going to the gas station
Yep.
is nice. Right now, really, I like the Model Y. That's partially your fault. um,
Hey, I try to help
but
people.
I really like the Ioniq 5 and
Mm-hmm.
EV6. Now, in a couple years, who knows what's out there? But I've been kind of keeping an eye on the EV6 and Ioniq 5, and they're starting to get pretty cheap.
Oh yeah, I saw
I'm
one.
not
I
one who
saw
really
one
wants
listed
to spend.
online, a GT model with it was a 2020 GT model, and I think it was right at 30,000 miles, and it only had like $30,000. It only had like 22,000 miles, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these things are dropping so low.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, because I'm not really one to spend a lot of money on a car. That's why I drive a
that's why you
Bolt.
drive a Bolt. So was it hard to find?
But
That's my question because you bought it probably
so
around peak, inventory issues. Was it hard to find?
a little bit. I ended up the one I bought ended up was in
Uh huh.
Jonesboro. But when I was looking, I was basically the two I was looking at was either I was going to have to drive to Jonesboro, I was going to drive to Dallas,
Gotcha.
and so I ended up landing on the one in Jonesboro because it was I liked it. It was white. The other one was a dark color, and they're so impossible to take care of.
So you did buy that from a dealership,
Otherwise,
correct? Or did you
though,
buy that online? How'd you buy that?
oh yeah, no, I bought it at a dealership.
Got you. Now, did they know anything about the car when they gave it to you? Because when I bought my wife's EV6, the dealership didn't know anything about it. They just kind of said, here it is. We'll go charge it for you. And that's about it. In fact, I kind of had to teach them a thing or two. So did they know anything about it or not?
When they sent me to the finance office, the guy told me he was going to go fill it up with gas.
Oh, that's not a good. Nope. Glad that he didn't.
Which it's funny because like he had it was fully charged when I got there. Like he sent me a picture. They pulled it around to their charger, their fast
Uh-huh.
charger in the back. He sent me a picture on the way up showing it was plugged in. So like he plugged it in. He knew.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he 100% he offered to put gas in it. When I told him, he was like, "Oh, you shouldn't have to." He goes, "Oh, is it not a hybrid?"
Oh my gosh. Yes. And that's a whole nother episode as well. All right. So thank you all for tuning into this episode today. You can also find us on Patreon at patreon.com/EVGeek. And for a $5 monthly membership, we will give you a shout out on the end of our episodes. Please consider becoming a Patreon member to help support and grow our podcast. Thank you, Sebastian, for joining us today. What is your handle on Twitter in case anyone wants to go over there and find you?
Yeah, so it's at Kilowatt Station.
Kilowatt Station. Go check him out. He does some really cool videos on the Bolt and just EV in general and news and things like that. All right. You can also find us on YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search the EV Geek podcast or check out the episode notes and give us a follow and like. Huge shout out again to Sebastian for joining us today and sharing his review of the Chevy Bolt. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you again on our next episode. So long, everyone.